that he's had. The other thing that's interesting about the corners, though, is you also have a new coach in Jordan Lee. I thought Trent Green was a really good young coach last year at Montana State. The proof is in the way that he got those young guys to perform, but also the fact that he got a defensive coordinator job at Northern Arizona in the conference for Brian Wright. So I think those two things pretty affirming for what Green was able to accomplish. But I think Jordan Lee's a good young coach who's also really hungry. You got Takari Carr, who is sort of a stalwart. He's been there for a while. He's played a lot of football. He's a senior. Is he ready to become like an all-Big Sky type of guy? I mentioned Corey Boyd. He and Marcus Coleman are both guys that are same mold as McMillan and Williams were, guys that are from Texas, played at a high level of Texas high school football. Are those guys ready to step up into a bigger role? I thought Brendan Ross, another guy who's from Rockwall, Texas, which is a big-time program. I thought he showed well last spring, but then he kind of just got buried. Tim Thomas is another kid from Houston who they have been very high on. The coaches have talked highly of. I think that internally they know that Carr for sure, Corey Boyd, Marcus Coleman, and Tim Thomas, all those guys have talent. The Cats don't take a ton of transfers, so the fact that they took Johnny Edwards from Arizona and Alec Wills from Penn, I think that indicates that they think that those guys that are internal guys have ability, but they want to have an insurance policy to make sure. So they want to make sure they have the dudes. But again, this is back to my theory. You recruit 3 dudes for every dude you need to hit. And so then if you have 9 or 12 options when you need 3 or 4 guys, that's going to help you. It's going to make the percentages just better for you. So we'll see if that plays out, but certainly the sort of the meshing of the two storylines, that you have a new defensive backs coach in Jordan Lee, and the fact that you have 3 guys that went up to the FBS level, but a whole bunch of guys that have been in the program, but you also brought in transfers. Who's stable, who's not, who's going to – I mean, that's the one thing you know. If you're a D1 corner, especially if you're coming out of these big-time high school programs in Texas, you are willing and ready to compete. So who rises to the top when it comes to that competition? It's Montana Football Hour. It's probably presented by Ryan Miller and Coburn Law, your Montana attorneys. All right, one more about the Grizz. I told you I made 10 of these each for the Cats and the Grizz. We got 4 done for the Cats. We got 3 done for the Grizz. Here is your last one for the Grizz for today. Things I'm going to be watching at fall camp. This might seem underrated, or maybe you don't want to hear about this right now, but I think it's incredibly important, actually. The kicking and punting game for the Grizz. Hi-ho Joe Silver was unbelievable during the spring game. He was one of my players of the game for the Grizz in the spring game. He was sort of an afterthought last year coming into the year because they had Ty Morrison, who was an all-Big Sky guy at both kicker and punter. He remained great at punting throughout the year, but he sort of fell apart as a kicker. So they needed to make a change. So Silver became their guy. Silver got his very first kick blocked, but then he was nails after that. During the spring, he had a 49-yard field goal, a 53-yard field goal. He is showing great power. I mean, he's an FBS guy. He came from Kent State. He's got a cool backstory. His uncle is actually one of my favorite professors during my time at the University of Montana Journalism School, Jeff Hull, who's an author and a well-renowned writer around Montana, and a guy that has taught a lot of great feature writing classes at UM. Well, I can't remember who's married to who or who, whatever, but Jeff's been out here, and then Joe Silver was at Kent State, and he wanted a little bit of a different experience. He had come to a game just with Jeff, I think, and was so impressed, and so he decided he was just going to roll the dice and come. Gets a spot, but then he was sort of overshadowed and then became important, but now I think it's his show. So can that be sustained from spring? Can you see Joe Silver continue to be a really good player? Unsure, but I think that needs to happen if you're the Grizz, no doubt. But then the punter, who's the punter? The Grizz brought in all sorts of different kicker transfers from various different schools, and then Silver's the one that emerged out of spring. But who's the punter? I have no idea. I don't even know who's can Silver punt? Who's going to be the punter? and who's going to be the long snapper. Again, this might not be sexy. You might not want to hear about it, but you cannot take for. I mean, the Grizz have had one of the best punters in the country forever. For 30 years? I mean, when's the last time the Grizz had a liability at punter? They really didn't, and especially under Bobby Hauck 2.0. That was the spot that he had on lock the absolute most, whether it was Brian Buschini or Patrick Rohrbach or Ty Morrison. There's all Big Sky punters in Montana year in and year out. It was never a concern. Well, you got to have a punter, and you got to win the field position battle, especially if you're Montana. It's such a huge advantage for you, especially when you're playing at home, because that's the way you can avalanche teams. You flip the field position, you get a coffin corner punt, or you get a big return or whatever. That's when teams melt when they're watching the Grizzly Stadium. So I think that's very important to get those spots shored up. I just want to know, is Silver still the man at kicker? Who's the long snapper and who's the punter? We're going to see. By the time I get down there to practice, I'll certainly take plenty of notes and let you know. But that's going to be an interesting one, no doubt about it. So Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, and the ESPN MT app. When you're hurt, you want a law firm that knows Montana like you do. Ryan Miller and Coburn is your hometown personal injury team. Born of Montana values, rooted in your community, Paul Ryan, Angie Miller, and Abigail Coburn have deep Montana ties. The legal experts know the roads you drive on, the doctors you trust, and the courts you'll face. Ryan Miller and Coburn are right here in Missoula, and they can serve
Life can change in an instant. If you've been hurt in an accident, suffered from medical negligence, or are facing criminal charges, you don't have to face it alone. At Ryan Miller and Coburn, we're here to listen and fight for you. We're your neighbors, traveling across Montana to stand by your side as your link to justice. Real people, real help, right here in Montana. Ryan Miller and Coburn, your Montana attorneys.
DeMorris Buick GMC is ready to help you safely travel Montana's scenic roads in comfort and style. Stop by DeMorris today and test drive some outstanding SUVs. Right now, take advantage of closeout pricing on the exceptionally designed 2024 Buick Envision with models starting at $39,795. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to DeMorris.com to preview our inventory of 2024 Buick Envisions and then pay a visit to DeMorris Buick GMC on West Broadway in Missoula, your family-owned hometown dealership for over 60 years.
Around here, we see a lot of people head out. No matter where they're going, we just make sure they're ready. Before you hit the road, get a pre-trip safety check at Les Schwab Tires. It's free. Plus, this May, save up to $200 on select sets of 4 tires.
If we can't guarantee it, we won't sell it.
Life's about the journey, not the destination, right? Why can't it be about both?
To allow just 3 hits, they then punched their ticket to the championship with a 7-6 win over the Helena Senators after exploding for 7 runs in the first inning. Now the focus shifts to Medford, Oregon, where the Northwest Regional begins Wednesday as the Mavericks look to keep their championship run alive.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is presented by Canyon River Golf Club. Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
Oh, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Nuanez Now. Appreciate you for hanging with us here on 102.9 ESPN Radio. You can also always stream it, 1029ESPN.com, and on the ESPN MT app. And Grizz and Cats, of course, I came up with 10 different points of observation for each of the two college Division I football teams in the state of Montana. We only got to 4 each. You can find that on the podcast. We'll keep on doing those throughout the year. I should say the next couple weeks. Go check out the pod. Please rate, review, subscribe there as well. And as always, we're coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal studio here at the Missoula Broadcasting Company. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran owned, the only Bears that should be in your garbage. Time for some NFL talk. Presented by Sportsbet Montana. One thing that I think is a really good part of the NFL, but one that has not been as consistently true recently, is that it's really hard to stay good for a really long time in the NFL. It's even harder to stay bad. But there's been a couple teams that have just been bad for the last couple of years. The Panthers made a bunch of upward progress last year, actually. 8-9 is nothing to write home about unless you're Carolina. He had the Panthers being better a year ago, so that helps. They're that team I'm talking about where it's hard to be really bad for a really long time. But the other two teams that have just been sort of stuck, well, actually there's 4 teams that have just been sort of stuck in that just being bad for several years now. The Raiders, the Jets, the Titans, and the Browns. I think that the Raiders and Browns have very similar. I think the Jets are probably right there as well. I think the Raiders, Browns, and Jets all have a very similar issue, and that is a lack of organizational vision and a lot of times a lack of organizational execution as well. I think if you have an involved owner, a meddling owner, that is not necessarily that doesn't bring that much football acumen to the table, like that's not a great for your franchise. I think that's going to be hard to overcome. I think when you have ownership that is, again, involved in meddling and they don't know how to pass responsibility, pass accountability, pass on operational duties to actual football people, I think that's where you get in a mess. The Browns have had a long-standing tradition of drafting very poorly. That's hard to overcome. I think that the Jets have had a long-standing history of just not being able to find any semblance of operation on offense. The Jets have been pretty good on defense at times over the last 20-something years. They have just not been able to find a quarterback or any sort of semblance of solidities. They haven't been able to solidify what they want to do on offense or have the person to be able to do that either. And I don't know how that changes right now either because, again, they've had flashes where they've been good on defense. But it's been a while since they were good in any form or fashion, right? I mean, the Jets of the 80s and 90s were good. They had the New York Sack Exchange, and they made the playoffs, I think, 5 times in the 1980s. Then when Bill Parcells was there, they were pretty good. And those late 90s Jets teams and early 2000s Jets teams with like Curtis Martin and Wayne Corbett, Keyshawn Johnson. And those teams made the playoffs 98, 2001, 2002, 2004. But they haven't made the playoffs since 2010. That's way back when Rex Ryan was the coach. The one of the common factors there is the owner, Woody Johnson. I mean, Woody Johnson bought the team in 2000, and the Jets have not been nearly as competitive as a big market team should be. 16 straight years of not making the playoffs, that's not good. And when's the last time? So much of this comes down to coaching too, right? When I'm talking about these Jets teams that were good, well, when Bill Parcells was the coach, Bill Parcells generally had some pretty good teams. When Herm Edwards was the coach, Herm Edwards is generally considered a pretty dang good head coach. I think Aaron Glenn is in a bad situation. I think Aaron Glenn's a good coach. I don't know if he's a good head coach. But when you bring a defensive guy in to be the head coach, and then you're trying to make him operate with the very limited offensive personnel that you got if you're the Jets, and I just don't really know how you turn the corner. When you've had the same problems for as many years as the Jets have, then at some point the problem is not on the coach or the players. It's on you. It's on the organization. It's on the ownership. Coming into this year, they're putting all their eggs in the Geno Smith basket. Geno had a good year in Seattle a couple years ago. Then he was a flop in Vegas last year. I don't know how that's going to be your answer moving forward, but it's not like he's standing in the way of some young guy that they're just trying to protect. That's the scenario in Vegas, right? You got Kirk Cousins, who I don't think has any gas left in the tank, and my criticisms of Kirk Cousins have been well consumed on this show, right? People know exactly what I think of Kirk Cousins. But he's the stopgap for Fernando Mendoza, which I'm not that high on Mendoza, but I think that he's got a lot more potential than anybody that's a backup for the Jets. Cade Klubnik out of Clemson, who was a fourth-round pick a couple years ago. Brady Cook out of Missouri, who's in his second year. None of these guys are like burgeoning prospects. Bailey Zappi used to be the backup quarterback for the New England Patriots. I don't know. I don't love it. The young skill players for the Jets. What I'm getting at, what my premise here is that almost always in the NFL, it's really hard to stay bad for a really long time. But I think that the Raiders and the Jets and the Browns are all going to remain pretty bad. I think they're all bottom 10 teams at best. And when you're looking at this Jets depth chart, I just don't know how you get much better. The offensive skill guys for the Jets are actually pretty good, but that's everybody in the NFL, right? Breece Hall was a guy that looked like he was about to be a breakout guy before he got hurt, but a guy out of Boise State who's very talented. Isaiah Davis, who's a kid out of South Dakota State who ran roughshod over both North Dakota State and Montana during deep playoff runs and national championship seasons there at SDSU. I think he's a solid backup. Garrett Wilson was a top 10 pick out of Ohio State at receiver, but he's sort of failed to live up to his billing. But how much of that has just been because Zach Wilson and Justin Fields suck? I don't know. But, you got Tim Patrick, who comes in from the Broncos, who's a guy that has shown flashes. Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. He's one of the most physically talented players I've ever seen. Live and in person, he was unbelievable when I watched him at Oregon against Montana State last year. But who's going to get him the ball? That's a big question. Defensively, you like some of your pieces, but you got rid of Quinnen Williams, who's supposed to be the guy you built around, but you traded him to the Cowboys last year. How much does his absence then affect Will McDonald, who's an up-and-coming edge guy who could be one of the best guys in the league at that spot, but does he have anybody to anchor the inside for him? Not sure. You signed Demario Davis a couple years ago. He's one of the most prolific inside linebackers in the league, so that should help that level. And you got Micah Fitzpatrick on the back end. He's a former all-pro type of guy. So the defense, though, has been far from your issue. The defense has been good to great for the Jets, and they have a defensive coach. And again, the offensive skill guys are pretty good. But where are we at the offensive line and where are we at the quarterback? And is Geno Smith the answer? I don't know. NFL Talk here on Nuanez Now. Probably presented by Sportsbet Montana. The futures bets are out on Sportsbet Montana. Go check out the over-under win totals. Go check out the division-by-division favorites. Go check out Super Bowl favorites, conference favorites. We'll be doing breakdowns of over-under win totals here with Brooks Nuanez starting a little bit later on this week. But if you need a place to find out where to bet or find out the lines, check out Sportsbet Montana's website or get the Sportsbet Montana app going as well. Great place to track things mobilely. Again, I think the Raiders also suffer from that organizational instability, but I think they have a little bit better of a plan, especially at quarterback. If we all agree that quarterback is the most important spot to figure out, then if your plan is Geno Smith and pray, that's not a good plan. It's not a good plan. If your plan is Kirk Cousins until Francisco Mendoza's ready, it's a lot better of a plan. But how long will that last? I think if you're the Raiders, you need to make it last for as long as you possibly can. Because, like, how many wins? Let's say Mendoza's just absolutely unbelievable. Let's say he's lights out good. How many wins is that going to get you? Like, how many wins is that worth? First of all, they're going to start Kirk Cousins right out the gates, right? How bad does Cousins have to be for you want to abandon this sort of the stemming of the tide, this bridge to Mendoza? Because I just think that what's the point? Like, if the best case scenario for you is to, like, the Raiders are not going to win more than, let's say it all goes as well as it possibly can go for the Raiders this year. Given the fact they're in the same division as the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos, they are not going to win more than 2 league games or divisional games. And then you look at the rest of the conference and you look at the rest of their schedule. I mean, their over-under win total is probably 5.5. Again, I haven't looked at these yet because we're going to do a guess the lines with Brooks Nuanez. But I'm saying it's like 4.5 or 5.5. Let's say you blow that out of the water. You win 7 games. Okay. Could you get to 4, 5, 6, 7? You're not making the playoffs. So, like, shouldn't you just reconcile yourself with developing for Francisco Mendoza as much as you possibly can and building the roster around him? And I mean develop him not on the field of play. I just don't know if you want to sacrifice this guy because we've seen this before. We've seen it when guys get thrown to the wolves and they lose their confidence. Like, in retrospect, is Tim Couch for the Browns or David Carr for the Texans, were those actually as bad a draft picks as they turned out to look like that they were? Or do those teams were they just an abomination on the offensive line? Those guys just got completely bludgeoned to death and they never got a chance to revamp their confidence. That's what I think. I think those guys could have been good if they went somewhere good. So often the guys that become good early, it's because of their situation. Ben Roethlisberger became a borderline Hall of Fame type of guy. That's because he went to Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers got a chance to learn from Brett Favre and wait his turn in Green Bay. When he was ready, then he got his opportunity, but he had matured and learned NFL defenses and so many of the guys that are really good early on, they don't have to get thrown to the wolves right away. I think a lot of teams around the NFL looked at what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes and how that sort of delayed insertion into the lineup really helped his development. So, again, if you're the Raiders, I don't know how many games you're going to win no matter who you play. So maybe it's actually to your advantage to be bad again. Like, just go 4-13. What do you have to lose? Like, going 4-13 and looking like you're a tanking team, if you're in a city like Philadelphia or New York or Dallas or even like Seattle or L.A., ain't going to fly. You got proud fans that are not down with that. The Raiders don't have proud fans. All the Raiders' proud fans live in L.A. or Oakland. Their team got stolen. I've been to more Raiders games than any other NFL team. Why? It's easy to get to Vegas from Montana. When you go, are you going to watch the Raiders? Hell no. You're going to watch the team the Raiders are playing. I've seen the Broncos. I've seen the Chargers. I've seen the 49ers. I was not buying tickets to the Raiders. I wasn't going to see Vegas. I was going to go to Vegas and go watch the other team that the Raiders are playing. So the Raiders will have fanfare, but they're not going to be good right now. So to me, I would just hold Mendoza out, see whatever you can get out of Kirk Cousins. If Cousins still old ancient relic, that's fine. Pull him. Go with Aiden O'Connell. You already did this. You played Aiden O'Connell. Now you at least hopefully have your quarterback of the future. Do it again so that you can go out to anchor your offensive skill. If this thing comes to fruition, and this is why I think the Jets, and that's not surprising given that Tom Brady is in the ownership group and also in the front office for the Raiders. Maybe that's helping. But if you can if Mendoza becomes what a number one pick should become, and then you pair him with Ashton Jeanty, who's a former top 10 pick out of Boise, who's a really talented guy. Brock Bowers is one of the great tight ends that we've seen, both at the college level and then early on in his NFL career. He was busted up last year, but if he could take another step, he's an elite guy. Can you solidify the offensive line? I mean, you probably have a bottom 10, but not bottom of the league offensive line right now. But if you could keep all that together, like Mendoza, Jeanty, Bowers, and then you work in a couple young receivers, you kind of got some potential there. But I think this being bad, again, would actually help you. And again, in terms of like the stability and the persona of your fan base, you have about as little to lose as anybody in the entire NFL. So I'd say stem the tide with Kirk Cousins again. Don't sacrifice Mendoza unless he's the more than ready, the most ready you could possibly be. If Cousins fails, go with Aiden O'Connell and just reconcile yourself to being a 3-4-5 win team again. Nuanez Now August on ESPN Radio. Just talking about how I think that three of the teams that were the worst teams in the NFL, like 2 years ago, we saw the Patriots go from a 3-win team to a 14-win team. That's a crazy improvement, but it's very hard in the NFL to stay bad forever. It's harder to stay bad forever than it is to stay good forever. But both are equally as hard because of the way the salary cap works, the way the contracts work, the way the collective bargaining agreement works. But the things that keep you bad are lack of organizational stability, lack of organizational vision, bad quarterbacks, bad draft picks, and hasty or not patient enough coaching carousels. Again, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I actually think the Raiders have a better plan. The Jets, I don't know what you're doing. You got Geno Smith, and that's it, and then you're basically just praying. Your defense isn't as good. I think getting rid of Quentin Williams hurts you on the defensive line. You have a coach who it's unsure if he's still good. But I think the Jets are right there in terms of the teams that are going to stay stuck being bad. I also think the Raiders are too, even though I think that their future bodes a lot better. And then the third team that I think is stuck right there, and this team has not always been bad. They've not been stuck in the bad land for forever. It's just been the last couple of years. And it's because of one of those factors I just mentioned. The Tennessee Titans hitched their wagon to Will Levis. That was not a good decision. Will Levis was about as over his – he was drowning as much as any quarterback, in over his head as much as any quarterback I've ever seen in the NFL level. Well, they remedied it. He was so bad that it actually kept him towards the top of the draft, and they remedied it with Cam Ward. I think Ward is really a talented passer. His problem is he's perhaps the least mobile quarterback in the entire NFL, and they're not good on the offensive line. I think that just based on my observations and some of the Pro Football Focus rankings and stuff like that, I think that the worst offensive lines in football are, in no particular order, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Texans, the Browns, and the Bengals. I think those five are objectively on the outside looking in of anybody else in the NFL. I think there's a lot of offense. Like, I think that the Eagles, the Bears, the Broncos, and the 49ers are all – and the Chargers, if their tackles can get healthy, I think all those are a cut above. I think the Broncos got the best in the league. I think the Eagles are right there. I like the Rams. I think the Bears are really good. I think the 49ers and I think the Chargers are all really good. I think the Bills are pretty good too, the Bucks. But I think that Everybody else is sort of just middle. Name the team: Colts, Cowboys, Seahawks, Packers, Lions, Steelers, Chiefs. Who else? Jags. I think they're all kind of right there in the middle. Ravens are probably in there too. But then I think the bottom is I think unquestionably Cincinnati, Houston. Houston's had a hell of a time protecting C.J. Stroud, which is actually amazing that he's been able to develop at a pretty good rate despite not being protected at all. I think the Dolphins are terrible on the offensive line, but I think the Titans and the Browns are the two worst offensive lines in the league. It's a bad combination to have the worst offensive line in the league and a quarterback in Cam Ward who's huge. He's 6'4", 230, but he can't move. That's bad. That's not a good situation to be in. The thing that the Titans have, though, over, at least right now, the Raiders and the Jets, is they have Cam Ward. Again, you have to protect this guy. You got to prop him up. You got to keep him healthy. You got to keep him upright. If you can, though, to me, I know some people don't like this because they love Francisco Mendoza's quirky personality and his dorky way of being. I think that Cam Ward's just a better prospect than Mendoza. I know. I think that a lot of people would say that that's just the wrong take, but I think Cam Ward has a big league arm. But again, you got to figure out a way to keep him upright because he does not have the modern day mobility that so many of these great quarterbacks have. And it's a bad scenario because he's playing behind an offensive line that's not very good. Tony Pollard is a fine running back for the Titans. Wan'Dale Robinson, Calvin Ridley are okay receivers, but that's just, it's not a roster that's got me that excited. Defensively, you do have a great piece to build around in Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee. He's one of the best interior guys in the league. Cody Barton is an above-average linebacker. Amani Hooker is a great safety. So you got good players at all three levels. So that gives you some ground to stand on if you're the Titans. There's some people that think they're going to be better, and maybe that part of that stems from the fact that they've improved their fronts a little bit. But they were so bad a year ago. So I worry about Cam Ward's development and where he falls. So we'll see. But I just can't see a scenario. I think everybody in the league that was not that good last year has a chance to be better, except those three teams we're talking about right now: the Jets, the Titans, and the Raiders. The Browns, I think the Browns have to overcome just being the Browns, right? And the Browns have such a bad quarterback situation because Deshaun Watson is just a shell of his old self. Like, what is he going to be? Is he going to be the guy that was like a borderline top 5 quarterback in the NFL last year? Or, no, not last year, years ago with the Houston Texans? Is he the guy that got a $230 million guaranteed contract? Or is he the guy that can't keep his personal affairs in order and can't keep himself healthy on the field? If he's even okay, he's their guy because Shadur Sanders is not it, and Dylan Gabriel is even worse than that. So they need Deshaun Watson to be that. But then, you look at their offensive players around him, man. Quishon Judkins is like just an okay running back. I mean, he's like, is he even a top 30 running back in the league? I don't know. Jerry Jeudy looked like a guy that was going to be good when he was in Denver. Hasn't looked like much of nothing since then. I don't really even know the rest of the guys that are on their offensive depth chart. I have no idea who their tight ends are. I mean, their offensive line, I think, is bottom of the league, one of the worst in the league. On defense, they've been good on defense, but they had the best defensive player in the entire NFL in Myles Garrett. They traded him. Jared Verse is really good. Myles Garrett's a first ballot, all-time great player. The Browns had the guy that set the all-time sack record a year ago, and they were terrible still. So defense has not been their issue. I like what they got in the secondary. I think Denzel Ward's really good. I think strong safety Grant Delpit is a good player. And I think Jared Verse is one of my favorite young edge guys in the NFL. But you got to figure out something on offense, and I just don't know how you do if you have a bad offensive line, very few elite skill players, and you're relying on Deshaun Watson to keep his personal life in order and keep himself healthy on the football field. So I think the Browns, because they're way better on defense than any of those other teams I just named, might have a chance to be okay. But I don't see how the Jets, the Raiders, or the Titans get out of the basement of the NFL. We've seen it year in and year out where there's teams that go from worst to first. I can see some of these teams maybe that were not that good last year, like the Chiefs, for example, who really stumbled. The Cardinals, they have the lowest over-under win total in the entire NFL coming this year. They have a better chance to be good than some of these other teams, and I just think that like the Jets to me are the team that is just up a creek until they can figure out what the heck they're going to do on offense, figure out what the heck they're going to do as a franchise. The Raiders, I think, actually have a plan. Can they stick to it? Can they execute it? The Titans, I think, have a quarterback. Can they keep him upright? The Browns, which version of Deshaun Watson are they going to get? And how does that affect their overall trajectory as a franchise? We've talked about a lot of the top teams in the NFL. I wanted to talk about some of the bottom teams in the NFL, so that's what we did here today. We'll have our over-under win totals. We'll start our guessing of those lines on Thursday with Brooks Nuanez. In the meantime, though, appreciate our friends at Sportsbet Montana. Visit Sportsbet Montana's website and also get the app in your life. And stay tuned here to Nuanez Now for all of your best when it comes to NFL betting all season long. Take a break from football, come back, talk some baseball. The Missoula Mavericks, state champions, and headed to the American Legion Regional in Medford, Oregon. Brett Hathaway, the manager, joins us next. Keep it right here, 129 ESPN Radio.
Bring the whole family to the Stone of Accord for a wonderful brunch. From traditional comfort food to eclectic specials, there's something for everyone to enjoy. And it wouldn't be a proper Missoula brunch without an Irish coffee and a mimosa. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino. At the Stone of Accord, we use the freshest ingredients to create our homemade traditional Irish classics, fresh salads, and creative specials. Come enjoy our warm, family-friendly atmosphere. The Stone of Accord, Irish fare with Montana flair. Restaurant, liquor store, and casino.
Access to Montana's great backyard is the best part of being a Grizzly. At the University of Montana, our classrooms are the mountain peaks, river valleys, and never-ending plains of the Big Sky Country. We provide students with the hands-on training to protect and enjoy hunting, conservation, and stewardship. UM launches the careers of outdoor leaders so that they can protect our traditions and ensure they are passed down for future generations. Because what's made in Montana is remaking the world.
Why would any business let you use their product and give you 365 days of reassurance? Mattress Firm does because they believe in their mattresses. Save on top brands like Nectar, Tempur-Pedic, Beautyrest, Serta, Stearns & Foster, and others. Mattress Firm carries $149 mattresses all the way up to the luxury Purple Rejuvenate Premier. 0% in payments as low as $39 a month, along with 365 days of reassurance. See why Mattress Firm is Montana's best place to find the sleep you deserve.
Mattress Firm, where it's easy to get a great night's sleep.
Mountain Town Vacation Rental Management, your local partner for vacation rental success. We provide a fully customized hosting experience tailored to your needs and goals. Your home is listed on every major site, helping you maximize visibility and bookings. And our local team is available 24/7 to handle guest needs and booking inquiries. Let us take the stress out of managing your vacation home. Contact us today at mountaintownvrm.com or give us a call at 406-369-3080.
It's Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
Well, history was made last week up in Lethbridge, Canada, and now the Missoula Mavericks turn their attention to the American Legion Regional in Medford, Oregon. Brent Hathaway, the manager of the Missoula Mavericks, joining us after his team fresh off a three-peat, the first three-peat in Montana, Alberta, American Legion in the last 23 years. Coach, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much for being here. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
First of all, tell us about the way that your team finished the season, because you guys were right there in the mix, and then you finished really strong to get the 1 seed, and then you just kept on rolling and just sort of blew through this. I know it wasn't easy, but certainly, to go unbeaten at the state tournament as well. What did you think of your team's steadiness and also just the way that they were able to peak at the right time here down the stretch this year?
You know what everybody says is play your best baseball at the end, and I think that we did. A lot of close ball games, a lot of things that could have gone, one way or another, and fortunately things bounced our way. Had some big clutch performances from some kids, and overall, pitching and defense was what's got it done for us.
Well, it seemed like your pitching really came alive, and you had so many different young men that contributed from that aspect. So what does that take? How do you get your pitchers to peak at the right time when you do have such a long season?
Honestly, I just think it's, just continuing to hammer home the idea that, we need to throw strikes and let our guys play behind us. Don't put guys on for free. And that's really what we did for the most part of the tournament. Andrew Richardson, Stellan Ridley, Ethan Paw, Coulter Nickel-Larson, those guys had really, really outstanding performances for us, and that was the difference maker.
Certainly, and you could tell that, too, just with how locked in all four of those guys were on the bump, and several of them contributed in big-time ways, other ways as well. Coulter Nickel-Larson had a ton of clutch plays, a ton of clutch hits as well, and he was the state tournament MVP. So what do you think made him worthy of that honor? What did you think of his performance helping lead you guys last week?
Well, his performance was stellar, and the award was well-deserved. Like you said, he came up with huge plays at the right time, difference makers. Couldn't have done it without him.
Brent Hathaway joining us here on Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television and the ESPN MT app. Missoula Mavericks, 3-time state champions, 3 in a row. First time since the Helena Senators did that in 01, 02, and 03 in American Legion in the state of Montana. So, Coach, you've been back-to-back multiple times. There's been 11 state titles won by the Mavs. I think you guys have gone back-to-back 4 different times, but this is the first time you got the three-peat. So, did you guys talk about it, and what was sort of the thinking in pursuit of this third straight state title throughout the season and sort of coming into the state tournament?
It really wasn't. It wasn't a focus of ours. We kidded around with Dave Tennis, who was the coach for the Helena Senators when this was last accomplished in 2001, 2, and 3. Dave's on our board. His son is my starting shortstop, and so you can imagine kind of the ribbing and back and forth that took place there. But honestly, we just try to get the guys to go out and play the game, be the best version of themselves every time they step on the field, and see what happens. And you saw what happened. We managed to pull it off. It was pretty sweet.
Well, has that sunk in yet? Just the fact that it's been so long since this has been done. I think it's only been happened a couple times ever in American Legion in the state of Montana. So has that sunk in with you and your guys yet?
I don't know. Dave did it back in 1, 2, and 3, and I think before there was a lot of competition in the state. I think the Royals won it almost every year for multiple years. But in the modern era, it hasn't been done except for the last 2 times with us and Coach Tennis. So it'll sink in probably later this fall when we have a chance to kind of sit back and analyze the season and think about how things went. Then I think it'll have a much more meaningful thought process, I guess.
Well, a lot of the young men on your team have experienced a ton of success all across the board, because not only do you have these 3 state championships for the Mavs, but also Missoula Sentinel was the high school baseball state champion this last spring as well. So, and I know some of the guys on your coaching staff were part of that Sentinels championship as well. So, do those things blend, and do you feel like that helps cultivate a winning attitude when you do have guys playing winning baseball in multiple different facets?
Without a doubt. You kind of get used to success. You know what it tastes like. You know what you have to do to get it. And so, like you said, Tennis and Ridley, they're on one hell of a run right now with, back-to-back state titles in Legion ball. They got one in basketball. They got one in high school. Those guys are having a lifetime experience experience or accomplishments in a matter of 3 years. So incredible. It's a lot of fun to be a part of.
It's sort of interesting, too, how there's just the way that it peaked, too. Like when you followed Sentinel, they were good all year, but then became great once it became like end of the year or tournament time. And then through the tournament, they were awesome. And same deal with you guys. You guys good all year and then great at the end and excellent throughout the tournament play. And that was kind of Sentinel basketball, too, right? They lost one early and then they lost one late, but then they locked in for state. So it seems like that's sort of a cohesive mindset that a lot of these guys have. And it's been sort of fun to follow. It must be fun for you as a coach to see young people be able to sort of hone their focus and rise up in big moments.
Yeah, really, really, really rewarding. You know, when you just, you know, you work so hard and you put so much time into it, and you watch them kind of have the ups and downs as the season progresses, and then when you see them, you know, peak at the right time and the most important time. You know, nothing feels better than that, watching a young man be successful at something that he loves so much in the biggest moment possible. So, yeah, as coaches, and I have an awesome coaching staff, you know, we just sit back and enjoy the moment because it is special.
Well, I'm sure it was fun then soaking it in on the way back from Lethbridge and all that, but then you kind of have to refocus again now as you guys make your way to Medford, Oregon for the American Legion Regionals. So how do you do that? How do you sort of balance letting the guys enjoy it, but also, you know, stay hot like you are and get guys ready to go again with games coming up on Wednesday?
Yeah, we'll see how it turns out. You know, we've always been a club that, I mean, we didn't take days off, and we played in a 7-day week. We probably played 5 of those days, so we're not used to sitting around for a week. I hope we don't. I hope we don't lose that mojo. You know, we've been taking it pretty light. We're just trying to stay sharp, you know, doing the things that we've done the whole time. But this is what you play for, you know, another step up on the ladder and a national tournament. And now everybody's a state champion and the competition level goes way up. And we're just hoping we can go there, be the best version of ourselves and represent Montana well.
You've been to this many times before. Well, what is the biggest jump? Like, what are the things that are maybe different from what these guys have experienced all summer long?
Well, the pitchers, for one. I mean, you don't get there unless you have 2 or 3 guys that can really sling it. And from experience, the strike zones from the umpires usually tend to get tighter. And so balls and strikes, you know, are a little more valuable because the zones are tighter. I mean, a lot of times they bring in collegiate umpires or umpires that are professional at that activity, and their strike zones are pretty consistent and 17 inches wide. So those are the 2 things that we notice.
Well, give people your itinerary because you get a little bit of travel here the next couple of days, but it should be fun and well worth it to get out there to Medford. But how do you sort of handle the logistical challenges and just give people sort of your guys' path as you make your way out west?
Yeah, the time that I've spent, you know, with paperwork and communication with people trying to get things lined up has been crazy. You know, so nationals it's kind of a crapshoot where they fly teams out of as far as which states go, and I don't know if they were guessing Billings was going to win it or what, but they had the flights booked out of Billings, so Missoula wins it. Now we have to get ourselves to Billings, so we'll bus down to Billings this afternoon, and then we fly out of Billings 6 a.m. sharp for Medford on Tuesday. And, you know, we'll give it our best effort once we get there.
Well, should be fun. We'll certainly be following along. We'll give you as many updates as we possibly can. But, Coach, we appreciate the time. Best of luck. Travel safe. And congratulations again. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, you're welcome, and thanks for having me.
DeMorris Buick GMC is ready to help you safely travel Montana's scenic roads in comfort and style. Stop by DeMorris today and test drive some outstanding SUVs. Right now, take advantage of closeout pricing on the uniquely designed and well-equipped 2024 Buick Encore GX with models starting at $28,895. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to demorris.com to preview our inventory of 2024 Buick Encores and then pay a visit to DeMorris Buick GMC on West Broadway in Missoula, your family-owned hometown dealership for over 60 years.
It's easy to see why Montana is the treasure state. At the University of Montana, we look inside. We see an old truth with fresh eyes, that Montana's greatest treasure is its people. So whatever tomorrow brings, we meet it the only way we know how, with a mind for making. Because what's made in Montana is remaking the world.
This is Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula.
Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Colter Nuanez coming to you through the Grizzly Disposal studio. Grizzly Disposal, locally owned, veteran-owned, and loves giving back to the community. They give back quarterly to organizations like Chicks and Chaps, the Grizzly Scholarship Association, youth sports teams across western Montana. And, of course, they support this fine local radio show, Grizzly Disposal, the only Bears that should be in your garbage. If you missed anything in the show today, fun show. Talked some storylines for both the Bobcats and the Grizzlies as they are in the midst of fall camp now, really hitting it hard here, starting a little bit later on this week. That was all through the Montana Football Hour. We also talked some NFL, some of the worst teams in the NFL, who has a chance to be better, who doesn't. We also gave you an interview with Brent Hathaway, the manager of the Missoula Mavericks, as they head to Medford, Oregon for the regional, the American Legion regional. All of it on the podcast, which is probably presented by Blackfoot Communications. Blackfoot offers high-speed fiber internet that can really transform your life, especially if you have any demands to work at home. I got Blackfoot fiber at my house about 9 months ago, and it's been awesome. And I really appreciate them for their continued partnership and for helping present the Nuanez Now podcast here each day, the archiving of Nuanez Now. This is a fun deal. So USA Today, which I know pales in comparison to what it once was as a publication, but certainly still a nationally relevant one, to help the United States celebrate a 250th anniversary. They put out lists of some of the top athletes from each state. So this USA 250 initiative, where they're ranking the top 10 college athletes from each state. So it's fun just looking at what they rank, who they rank for the state of Montana. So here's the top 10 college athletes that are from Montana, according to USA Today as part of the 250th anniversary celebration of America. Eric Kristoviak, who hails from Shelby, went to Missoula Big Sky, then went to the University of Montana. Kristoviak was a 3-time Big Sky Conference MVP. He remains the all-time leading scorer in the history of Montana basketball. He's also the all-time leading rebounder as well. I believe he's the only man in league history with 2,000 career points and over 1,000 career rebounds. He's the only men's basketball player at the University of Montana to have his number retired, and he was named number 2 on the Big Sky's 50 greatest athletes of all time when they celebrated their 50th anniversary back in 2013. Michael Ray Richardson also made the list. Michael Ray Richardson was recently disinducted into the Big Sky Conference Hall of Fame. Richardson was recruited by Jet Heathcote. He's the program's second all-time leading scorer with more than 1,800 points behind Kristoviak. He was a 3-time All-Big Sky pick for the Grizzlies, led Montana to 2 conference titles, an NCAA tournament win, and was an honorable mention All-American before being selected 4th overall in the 1978 draft by the New York Knicks. We did a fair amount on Michael Ray 2 weeks ago, leading into his induction into the Big Sky Conference Hall of Fame. So you can check that out on your various podcast hosting platforms. This is in no particular order, by the way. This is just how they listed it in USA Today. So you had 2 Grizz basketball players to kick this thing off. Jan Stenerud is one of the great kickers in the history of football. He once upon a time dreamed of being an Olympic skier, but then he was an All-American Olympic skier at Montana State in 1964. But then, as the story goes, Roger Kraft, who was the basketball coach for the Bobcats, he was walking across campus one day. He sees this skinny Norwegian kicker out there kicking footballs. He runs straight into Jim Sweeney's office. Jim Sweeney was the head coach for the Bobcat football team at the time. And he says, Sweeney, you got to see this kid, this Norwegian kid who's on our ski team, who's also a soccer player. This dude can hit like 50, 55-yard field goals. And this is back in the mid-1960s when literally nobody was doing that, not even professional guys. So Sweeney goes and rounds up Stenerud, says, okay, come on for the tryout. And then as the legend goes, Stenerud hits multiple 50-yard field goals in front of Sweeney. And Sweeney says, we got to have you. And then Stenerud becomes one of the most prolific kickers in the history of football. He was an All-American at Montana State in 1966. He had the longest field goal in college football history when he hit a 59-yarder against the Grizz. He also set the college football record for most points in a season with 82 in 1966. He then went on to have a Pro Football Hall of Fame career and won a Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs. Up until recently, he was the only kicker in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So pretty cool, Jan Stenerud from Montana State. Shannon Kate, also listed by USA Today as part of their 250th anniversary celebration. She's now Shannon Schwain. Kate was the Big Sky's first All-American in 1992. She was a finalist for the Naismith Player of the Year Award. She was a 2-time Big Sky MVP, set the conference record in scoring with 2,172 points, led the Grizzlies to 4 NCAA tournaments. She was voted the Big Sky's #1 athlete of all time during their 50th anniversary celebration on the women's side, and her jersey is retired by the Lady Grizz. Those 4 were all slam dunks, right? I don't think any of those 4 were surprising. The next one might be a little surprising. Tyler Hall, Montana State men's basketball. Hall, to me, is he's the most transcendently talented and best individual player that I've covered in the Big Sky. It's close. There's a lot of other guys in the running. But Hall, for my money, was the guy that was the most consistently spectacular to watch. Problem was, his Montana State teams weren't very good. But Hall is an all-time record holder in the Big Sky in career points, or at least he was when he graduated. He's the all-time league record holder in Montana State in points scored by 628 points, which is like a whole season worth of points. He was a 4-time All-Big Sky pick, and his 431 career-made three-pointers, a Big Sky record, and ranked 16th all-time in the history of the NCAA. His teams, though, I believe only won 1 conference tournament game during his 4 years at Montana State. Tim Houck also made the list. Tim Houck was a 2-time All-American, a 2-time Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year, 1988, 1989 for the Montana Grizzlies. He was the first Montana player ever named to the Walter Payton Award watch list. Finished his career with 305 tackles, 15 interceptions, set a school record with 25 tackles in a game against Fresno State. He then famously went on to play in the NFL for 13 years, returned to the college coaching ranks, then came back and into the NFL, won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, and then most recently spent his last couple years coaching defense at Montana at his alma mater on his brother Bobby Houck's staff. Tim Houck recently just retired, and last I talked to him, thoroughly enjoying retirement, no question. Also on the list, Sonny Holland of Montana State. He's often referred to as the greatest Bobcat of them all. Holland was a 3-time All-American linebacker and helped the Bobcats. This says linebacker. He was an offensive lineman, 3-time All-American offensive lineman, who helped the Bobcats to the 1956 national title as a player. He then returned as the coach from 1971 to 1977 and helped lead the Bobcats to the 1976 Division II National Championship. He then retired super early at the age of 38 and sort of sailed off into the sunset. He worked as a fundraiser and an administrator for Montana State. And, I mean, he's as revered as anybody in the history of the rivalry, and his statue sits out front of Bobcat Stadium. Vince Huntsberger, a Libby, Montana product. He also lands on this USA Today Top 50 list. Huntsberger, of course, played for the Montana Grizzlies. He's the only Montana player to ever receive a Heisman vote. He set the Grizz single-season record for tackles in a season with 145 in 2001. He was the Big Sky Defensive MVP in 1999 and 2001, and the Buck Buchanan Award runner-up. He led Montana to the national championship game in back-to-back years and the 2001 national championship, which is the most recent national championship won by the Montana Grizzlies. He earned MVP honors of that game. And finally, on the USA Today top 10 college athletes of all time, Dante Olson, Montana. This is from USA Today, not me. He was named the Buck Buchanan Award winner in 2019. He was a two-time All-American, the Big Sky Conference Defensive Player of the Year. He set the school record for tackles as a junior with 151. Then he led the nation in tackles the following year with 179. Both those marks are two of the most prolific marks in the history of the league. And Dante Olson was absolutely a tackling machine. In terms of how I would do this, I don't know. I have to think about this a little bit more. I just saw this pop up on my feed today. I'll give you my top 10 because I think some of those are surefire. I think you got to go with Krzysztofiak. Of course, one I passed over, but of course you probably already assumed. Dave Dickinson, how could I miss that? He's right there on my third on my list. He quarterbacked the Grizz the 1995 National Championship. He was a three-time All-American, Big Sky Offensive MVP 3 times, threw for 13,486 yards, 116 touchdowns. He was inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame in 2018. Walter Payton Award winner, and his senior year he threw for 5,676 yards and 51 touchdowns. The legend of the fall, Super Dave, has to be on the list too. I'll do my own list, and we'll get through that a little bit later on this week. But for right now, we're up against it. We appreciate you for hanging out. Plenty more football talk coming your way. We got a big announcement coming up later this week as well. And whatever else we can get to, we'll see you then. We'll see you at 4 p.m. tomorrow. In the meantime, have yourself a wonderful evening. It's Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio.